in recent years, when adjustments have been made in our organization, the governing body has avoided laying down a lot of rules, but rather provided Bible principles to guide Christian decisions. Think about some of the adjustments we've had recently. Publishers no longer report their hours or placements in the ministry. We've had adjustments in how we deal with ones who have been removed from the congregation. A Christian can decide whether to extend an invitation to one to attend a meeting, or one can decide whether they'd like to give a brief but warm welcome when they come to the Kingdom Hall. We've had adjustments in our dress and grooming. Brothers can wear beards, sisters can wear pants. Brothers don't always have to wear ties in every situation. There's the clinking of glasses and toasting, our choice of education. In all these adjustments, the brothers don't give us a long list of rules, but rather principles to give us guidance. But isn't the governing body concerned that without giving proper rules, some might make unwise choices in these areas? Might some do less in the ministry because we're no longer turning in a report? Might some have too much association with ones who've been removed from the congregation? Or perhaps dress too casually or immodestly at the meetings or in the ministry, or groom our beards in a way that distracts? Might some share in toasting in some inappropriate way or occasion, or make unwise choices regarding education? Wouldn't it be safer to give clear rules? That way everyone would know exactly what to do. No one would take a misstep. Well, to be sure, laws have their place. But these recent adjustments we mentioned do not involve matters that are plainly right and wrong in every situation. Circumstances come into play. Various factors must be taken into account. How can we say exactly what a person should say if they choose to invite a removed one to the meeting? A rule could be made about a specific style of pants or a certain way to groom the beard, but then in time, that style goes out, and now the rule becomes obsolete. Circumstances have a bearing on toasting, our choice of education, and other matters. Also, it's possible to obey a rule or a law for the wrong reason. Maybe this is because what everyone else is doing, or to avoid the penalty of disobedience.
The penalty of disobedience. Yes, there is a penalty of disobedience for Jehovah's Witnesses if they do the wrong thing. There always has been. No matter how much the organization may bring in changes, may reverse certain policy decisions, and it's been doing that a lot lately, as Jeff Winder of the governing body here has just been neatly summarizing for us. No matter to what extent they change things or try to modernize, the fact remains that we're dealing with a very authoritarian group, and a group that can ruin lives if someone missteps in some way or does something that the organization doesn't approve of. And I actually think it's very sneaky the way Jeff Winder is summarizing the changes that have taken place. Many of them positive, for many of them it's been a case of, well, about time, why didn't this happen sooner? And Jeff Winder is asking, well, is it wise for us to do this? Would it not be better to avoid the possibility of people making mistakes by having lots of rules? Maybe we should have more rules. So he's kind of using some reverse psychology here, some kind of mental trickery to make Jehovah's Witnesses believe that they're being given a great deal, when in fact they've been given what they should have had all along, which is the freedom to grow beards, or the freedom of women to wear pants at the meetings, or the freedom to have toasts. None of these things have any bearing on what is or isn't written in the Bible. They were just rules. And there still are a great many rules. You can call them principles if you like, but bottom line, if you have a guideline or a policy where something is considered wrong and there are penalties if someone missteps in that way, then it's a rule. And all we've seen over the last couple of years is the organization get rid of some of its rules. That doesn't make Jehovah's Witnesses all of a sudden cool. And what Jeff Winder is doing is he's essentially reminding witnesses how much power the organization has over them, how much power he as a governing body member wields. He's effectively saying, we have the power to give you more rules, or to reintroduce those rules, or make life more constrained for you. But because we're so merciful, we're just going to give you some principles. We're going to relax rules and give you principles instead, because we're merciful, because New Light is allowing us to do that. And the question should be, if you are one of Jehovah's Witnesses, as I keep saying again and again, why only now? Why only in the 2020s is the faithful slave realizing that rules are not such a great thing, that it's better to have principles? And why has it taken them so long to be reasonable in these areas?
Now, Bible principles are fundamental truths that never change. They guide us to do the right thing over time and regardless of the situation. You could illustrate it this way. While laws might be likened to a single beam of light, like a flashlight or a torch, and they guide us for a specific step or for a specific path, principles are more like light from overhead, even like the sun, perhaps, that illuminates the entire area. Now, all aspects can be taken into account and proper decisions can be made. But isn't it reassuring to see the trust and confidence that Jehovah shows in us by giving us principles instead of a myriad of laws? When we're young, we need rules, don't we? Don't run with the scissors. Don't cross the street by yourself. But as we mature and get older, we don't need those laws. It's sufficient for us to know that scissors are sharp and that there's heavy traffic. Well, Jehovah doesn't treat us like children. He has confidence that in a spiritual way, we can learn to be guided by Bible principles and make good decisions.
Again, I really hope you can all see what he's doing here. Jehovah doesn't treat us like children. He doesn't say Jehovah no longer treats us like children. He doesn't try to give any accountability for all of the decades when there were lots of rules rather than principles, or in addition to principles. He gives no account for what's actually happened. He just says Jehovah doesn't treat us like children. Everything's great. We don't need rules. All we need are principles. Again, Jeff Winder, how do we account for all the decades that preceded the rule changes? Jeff Winder is making out that this has always been what Jehovah's Witnesses are about. They've always been chill when it comes to not following rules and only following principles. And I think the whole thing comes unraveled when you re-examine his illustration of the guy with the torch. He says, rules are like someone carrying a torch, or the light that comes from a torch or a flashlight. Whereas principles are like when the sun comes up and everything's illuminated and you don't need the rule anymore because you can see everything. Well, he's already explained that one such rule governed beards. And apparently the reason why the beards rule was no longer necessary is because things change over time. Fashions and trends change over time. So how do we account for that? Jesus had a beard, and yet for decades of the organization's history, it was considered a rule that based on a Bible principle, it would be wrong for people in positions of leadership to have beards. I think what we're really talking about is principles of Jehovah's Witness worship that, rather than being unchanging, as Jeff Winder says, principles never change, according to Jeff Winder. But I think we all realize, or those of us who know about Jehovah's Witnesses, we realize that actually the principles themselves can change. All you need is some new light. And all of a sudden, not just rules, but the overarching principles themselves can completely change. They change because the organization isn't being steered by God. It's being steered by men who change their minds all the time, who are constantly rebranding and wanting to try to make their organization look more appealing so that more people will join. And over time, you end up with a religion that's practically unrecognizable from where they began, even though at the beginning they were calling themselves the truth and ruining people's lives if they disagreed in any way, shape, or form with either the rules or the principles they were teaching.